Hey guys, Hyrule here. So today I'll be making a video basically talking about the changes that TV/film has made to the comic book medium. Nick previously made a video on this similar topic. Even though I don't 100% agree with everything he said, I do recommend you check it out if you want a different opinion on what he had to say. So, yeah, moving on, I'll be talking about two things from each one. From Marvel, I'll talk about the Ultron origin difference. From film to comics, and I'll also talk about Quicksilver Scarlet Witch's change. In the DC front, my bad. I'll talk about the Arrow to Green Arrow comic change, and also Green Lantern's change. Yeah, let's move on. Ultron. So Ultron in the comics, made by Hank Pym. He's the AI gone wrong. That's basically summarizes the character. In the film, he will be created by Tony Stark. Also, at the same time, he will be a product of Tony Stark experimenting on a S.H.I.E.L.D. computer virus or computer program, which, through his experimentation on it, it'll gain consciousness, thus become the Ultron in the film. My thoughts on it. It makes a lot more logical sense that Tony Stark makes the Ultron program, because Tony Stark does things like he develops AI, he makes suits of armor, robotics, machines, things like that. He's the top engineer in the Marvel Universe. Well, Hank Pym is a biochemist, so that's why certain things, like it'd be like Tony Stark making the Pym particles. Doesn't make a lot of sense, versus Hank Pym, that's his field of science, his field of craft. Just like in the same vein, it'd be like Reed Richards making an Iron Man suit versus, and then Tony Stark making some sort of, dimensional wormhole exploration device. It's not really their fields of science, if that makes sense. Or Spider-Man, for example, like Tony Stark making web shooters while Spider-Man makes a suit of armor. You know what I mean? Like, it's just logically fitting the character, that character's field of science, what that character can do ability-wise. What the MCU is doing does make a lot more sense logically, which to one degree they're doing also because Edgar Wright in the Ant-Man project were being sat on for 8 years, while Edgar Wright and Marvel were developing it to fit into the MCU before they had the whole, creative difference about putting it in the MCU versus making it more of its own standalone film. That, in response, did a lot of things to Hank Pym's character, such as make it so he couldn't be a founding member of the Avengers. Even though I heard they might tweak that a little bit by doing something where it's like Hank Pym was a part of some sort of earlier Avengers project that Nick Fury had going on, that maybe, I guess, people are saying Nick Fury hinted at. I don't know. But anyways, the Ultron origin as a whole, I think the changes they have made to it, disregarding the whole S.H.I.E.L.D. thing, make a lot more logical sense. Like, if I were to think, hey, this guy that's been working on robotic suits, he's been working on AI like Jarvis, it would make a lot of sense that he, would screw up and make a villain that would be an AI system kind of thing. In the same vein, like I said before, like it would make a lot of sense that Hank Pym would be responsible for Ant-Man because he's a biochemist. And the Pym particles have to do with that. Now, moving on to the whole S.H.I.E.L.D. thing, more in particular, I know that's a very interesting thing, and I know they're doing it to tie in more with Thanos. So I'm really not going to say much on it because it was just revealed, but first impression wise, I'm really mixed on it. More on the negative side than the positive side, because I feel like it's kind of maybe making it a lot more too convenient for the whole it's all connected thing. Unless, they're going to twist it around and be like, Thanos implemented that computer program with the sole purpose of it eventually turning into Ultron, kind of painting him more of like a mastermind behind the scenes, like 5 steps ahead of everyone else kind of thing. So if they're going with that, it's a lot more understandable, and I'd love to see it, but it really depends how they play it out in the universe that the MCU has developed for itself. With that being said, in the same vein for the Quicksilver Scarlet Witch, for the universe that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has, that whole universe of TV, film, they can't use mutants. So I wouldn't expect Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch to be mutants. And the whole miracles thing, that it's kind of corny, but I can see them going with that. Inhumans, however, makes a lot of sense. First off, because they have the rights to the Inhumans. Second, they're making a movie for the Inhumans. And third, because the qualifications between the Inhumans and the mutants are very vague, and they overlap each other all the time. Thus, I'm not too mad on it, just because it's one of those very much gray areas. It'd be like saying Hulk, gets mad because he's angry, versus Hulk gets mad because of emotional imbalance, like adrenaline mixed in with, whatever have you, which is what they've done recently in the comics and MCU. They've said it's not just when he gets angry, it's certain emotional triggers, like if he gets too excited, too aroused, etc. So, yeah, it's kind of that vague thing where you can't really be too mad, because there was never a, definite, bold-lettered, defining thing to define which one's which, this and that. However, about Quicksilver's parentage and Scarlet Witch's parentage, I'm actually not too mad on it. I pride myself with being a classic Marvel fan. I have a lot of old Avengers comics, like Avengers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 31, I believe. That's what I have it up to in my shelf. And I was rereading it because I remembered something, which was that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch originally weren't Magneto's kids. And I was right. Originally, they were the kids of the Wizard and Miss America. Now, they're World War II heroes, which they could kind of twist in with Captain America, even though I doubt they'll do it. But the Wizard had super speed, which made a lot of sense, him being the father of Quicksilver, who also has super speed. So, if they do go back to that in the comics, I won't be mad. I doubt they'll do that in the MCU, though. But basically what I'm saying here is that, and also there is a whole thing with the High Evolutionary in regards to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch's parentage, and it's very complicated. So basically what I'm saying here is that the parentage of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch has been retconned before, and it's always been very up in the air, kind of, in the sense where you could easily change it. Versus something like Spider-Man's origin that's very much set in stone. Like, you cannot change Uncle Ben dying. You can't replace that with Aunt May. You can't replace that with, Flash Thompson. It has to be Uncle Ben. That's set in stone. That's part of the character. So yeah, basically what I'm saying here is that you can't really be too mad on it. You can be upset. You have that right to be upset that they're changing something that's been in continuity for about 20-ish years. But at the same time, this is the same type of people that were getting mad at me when I was saying, oh, they're changing Wally West's character for no reason, just to, be politically correct. This is the same type of thing, people. You guys said, oh, Josh, gotta be open to change. Gotta be open to change. It's okay. Gotta be open to change. Now you guys gotta be open to change. See how it's kind of all coming full circle here? But my goal here is not to piss everybody off by, pointing out hypocrisy. Let's move on to Arrow, the DC side of this. So Arrow, basically, when that first came on, it didn't affect the New 52 too much. The Green Arrow comics were focusing more on Justin Hartley's portrayal of Green Arrow, because Smallville had ended about 2 years-ish, a year or so, before the New 52 started. Now, with that being said, when Jeff Lemire joined the run, he started taking some elements from the TV show, even though he took, I'd say, 30% of the TV show, and the rest of it was his own originality, which came out to be a critically acclaimed run on the Green Arrow comic. Moving on, that the creative team after Jeff Lemire totally started fresh, and basically they turned the comic into Arrow 2.0. There's an Arrow Cave, Felicity randomly replaced the tech expert that Oliver Queen had before. Diggle came back, even though they said before that Diggle did work with Oliver previously, but they parted ways, respectively, because of differences and all that stuff. And also Roy kind of created an issue between the two, how to use Roy, and, Roy's part of the team. So, and also they have a salmon ladder now, too, that I guess Oliver, works out with. My thoughts on this is, I think this is one of the kind of, it's just like when they introduced the new Black Nick Fury into the 616 comics. I think that's, you're going a little bit too far with, trying to conform the, your comic book universe to be like your TV/films. Because when there was the Black Nick Fury and the Ultimate Universe, which was modeled after Samuel L. Jackson before Samuel L. Jackson got casted as Nick Fury. That's fine. It's an alternate universe. It's an alternate take. You still have the regular universe. You have your traditional Nick Fury with all the history of the Howling Commandos and all that stuff. So, I am on the side that's kind of more negative on that random, change of Nick Furies. But moving on to DC, because I said I talk about DC now. Same way. I don't like this, this blatant pandering to the Arrow crowd when they already have an Arrow comic book. Now, I haven't read too much of the recent run. I did read parts of Lemire's run. I thought it was great. I read parts of the, run beforehand because I had to make the character bio for Green Arrow. But what I will say is that this won't last long. You cannot build your, main comic book 100% off the TV show, especially when the TV show has a comic, because basically you're not the original, your originality is going to be dead. That's essentially what's going to happen. So I feel like this is definitely going to fail unless the creative team changes it up a little bit. I don't like, they've been using some of the same catchphrases too, Belly Burger, Felicity's like, oh, let's go to Belly Burger, or something like that. But moving on, let's go to Green Arrow, or not Green Arrow, Green Lanterns, all these greens. Green Lantern, the character of Hal Jordan is a soldier, believe it or not. A lot of people forget he was in the Air Force. He was a very serious character. He was a soldier. He was driven. He was determined. He focused on the mission. In a lot of ways, personality-wise, he was a lot like Batman in that sense that he was serious and mission-oriented before the Green Arrow movie came out. Once the Green Arrow movie came out, he was a lot more joking. He was more of a foil to Batman's personality, which Wally West was a lot like, versus, complementing the personality that Batman had, that seriousness on the team. Once the Green Lantern movie failed, though, they made Green Lantern Hal Jordan less like Ryan Reynolds, and he's been more like his previous self, more serious, especially because he leads the Green Lantern Corps now. But, this is just another example of, them changing the comics to be like a TV show. I could understand why they would do it, but at the same time, your character is a soldier. He's a military person, just like Jon Stewart was. You kind of do have some sort of expectations for, personality. Expect them to be more serious, mission-oriented, etc. More about the team than I. Versus, when the Justice League comic first started, which was when the Green Lantern movie was coming out-ish, it was more about him. He was, being the Joker and all that stuff. But all in all, both comic book companies are victim to doing this. Like I said before, or maybe I haven't said this yet, Marvel's a lot more victim to it, mostly because more of their movies have come out in the past 10 years than DC's. And I'm sure once DC's cinematic universe, takes off and all that stuff, they'll do a lot more of it too. But they gotta find a balance. That's really the key to this. I understand why they do it, because sometimes the movies bring in new audience for the comic books, and they want the new comic book readers to feel not 100% confused and not 100%, outside of the sphere of, the knowledge of the characters and all that stuff. So, I understand why they do it, but at the same time, you gotta find a balance. It's all about balance, and, different characters need different types of balance. You have very popular characters like Batman and Superman, where maybe the balance shouldn't focus so much on what the TV show or what the, movie is like, but more so stay true to the character as it's been to the comics. Versus other characters that you have, like side characters, like Guardians of the Galaxy. Very easy to change them to be more like the movie TV show version. If you've read the DNA run, you're going to be a lot more different in your opinion, but a lot of people haven't read the DNA run. Thus, those characters that aren't so popular, not so, A-list, they're easier to, they're more malleable, basically. But comment below your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think, about Marvel DC kind of changing their characters, and I'll see you guys later.